Welcome to Soundbreaker. On today's episode, we're talking to Priyanka Khimani, a long anticipated interview. Trust me, it was very long. So, you know what? Finally, we got her. She's extremely busy traveling both country, US and India, back and forth. And she sits on the board of quite a few companies. She's a Billboard top music lawyer. I don't know what that means, but I want to get into it for myself and for our viewers and listeners at Soundbreaker. And she's also a board member of Song Trader, who's owned and run by no other than Paul Wilshire, a good friend of ours, and also Beat Tap. Also, Andrew Beatty is a good friend of ours, and we had him on the show here. Priyanka, thank you for joining us today. For our listeners who might not be familiar with you, if you don't mind, give us a quick introduction before we dive into it. This is going to be extremely insightful and interesting. Can't wait.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, Bob. I know this has been much anticipated. So thank you for being patient and finally making this happen. To
My
everyone listening,
pleasure.
thank you. So, a quick introduction. I run an entertainment law firm called Khimani and Associates, based out of India. In the last decade or so, we've been highly regarded for our practice in entertainment and technology. We've represented a lot of the talent locally across film, TV, and music. And then I think in the last few years, we've worked with pretty much every single non-Indian stakeholder talent that has looked at India as part of their growth strategy, wanting to enter India, have some connections with the Indian music and film business. So that's our role in terms of helping bridge the two worlds, it's easier to say bringing India to the world and the world to India.
Amazing. I mean, you do film. You're involved in the film business and the music business, both
I
entertainment. I call it audio and visual. They're both together. They go hand in hand.
Absolutely. I think for us, the practice spans across film, TV, music, social media, advertising, gaming,
Yeah.
fashion, tech, right? Everything that's sort of media as a whole, especially when you're in a territory like India, it's inevitable to be involved in the movie business in some shape or form where we've got the Indian cinema and so many different and thriving film industries that
Amazing.
it's impossible to be here and not be connected to
Well,
movies.
definitely we're going to dive into and talk about a bit about the Bollywood scene in India and the music scene in India because, a lot of people know and a lot of people don't know that it's so huge, it's massive. The entertainment industry in India, it's massive. It probably, I don't know if it's the same as here or even bigger than the States.
I know we're
But
definitely
we'll,
a
yes,
producer of films, and I was trying to be politically correct and not call it Bollywood because there's some conversation about how we're more than Bollywood, which is true.
yeah.
But yeah, I think it's the universally known term.
Well, hey, we're not here to offend anybody. We in the music business. Anybody in the music business always loves everybody. Universal language and the film business. Priyanka, before I jump into it and ask you, well, you know what? Why don't we do that? Why don't we go back a bit, back to your teenage years, and what influenced you to take that path? Was it your parents, or was it your love for music and entertainment? And obviously, you're probably a great delegator, and you can nobody could win an argument with you. You choose the law profession, but let's see what really influenced you to say, this is the path I want to take, mom and dad, or this is what I want to study later on. Please.
You know what? It's totally by accident, completely
Uh
by
huh.
accident. I did not grow up thinking that I wanted to be an attorney. Certainly didn't grow up thinking that I was going to be in entertainment as a lawyer. I grew up spending a lot of my teenage years doing a lot of theater in Mumbai in different regional languages as well as in English. I was a part of a very popular English play when I was in high school, and then some part of college. Spent a lot of my time writing for film, TV, radio. Just dabbled in different jobs in terms of assisting, co-writing, so on and so forth. So that really was my training ground, and went to law school really to keep my mom happy. I think also culturally, India definitely is one of those places where
You got to have the degree,
you gotta
doctor, lawyer, or an
exactly.
engineer. Yes, and computer engineer. Yes.
She's like, not under my roof. Like, if you're living under my roof, you live on my terms. And I love and admire her for that. So that's why I really went to law school. But what I would do is spend a lot of my time once I finish school in the morning, really run off to being on set or assist on another project. And finally, I think it all sort of came to a head. I spent a good 8, 10 years dabbling in between two different worlds and living this sort of dual life. I was really popular in school as, oh, this is the girl who's involved in entertainment. Also because this is pre-social media, right? Before we had entertainment as prevalent as it is today, and we had access to so much technology. But on the flip side, there was very little money to be made, and I wasn't making anyone happy. Definitely not at home, and ends to meet. And So finally, once I finished law school, graduated, I started practicing as a with a solicitor's firm as a commercial litigation attorney. Again, I think it was incredible because once your foundation is in
Yes.
litigation, I think it just goes such a long way in your legal career. But interestingly, it's always the two worlds coming together. I had one of the writers who had worked with for a long time reach out to
Hmm.
me, and ended up getting my first ever client in the music business.
Amazing.
And it happened to be Lata Mangeshkar, who is known as the Nightingale of India. Unfortunately, she's no longer with us. She passed away a couple of years ago. But that was for me the starting point in entertainment. There was no intention, but I think when you start working with someone as iconic as her, uh, everyone else kind of just follows suit. Until today, I think almost our entire clientele has been word of mouth, but more so with someone like her. And before our chat today, I was just sort of looking back at the time when I started acting for her as a young attorney.
Mm.
We were looking at she'd already her career back then had already been about 7 decades already. I think almost, I don't want to say retired, but wasn't actively still doing a lot of playback singing. But we helped her then set up her record label called LM Music. It was actually the first board that I ever served on and continue to
Mm.
serve until date. I today actively help administer the Mangeshkar estate. Back then, we were looking at, what today has become almost second nature in the music business, where we're looking at catalogs and acquisitions, and royalties are such a conversation. So I think I saw a lot of firsts in my career thanks to her, and then everything else flowed from there.
Amazing. So would I say this is how you kind of pursued your path in the entertainment business, but and music rights, because you're rights attorney also,
Of
correct?
course.
Yes,
Yes.
I see.
I think I was also lucky in terms of timing because the copyright law was amended in 2012. And it
Uh,
is, to date, one of the most significant amendments that the Indian copyright law has seen. And again, on the back of that, I ended up leading a massive class action lawsuit on behalf of a few writers. And one of them, it resulted in, for all practical purposes, the Indian PRO being reformed for all the right reasons. And today, one of them is the chairman of the PRO. So I think I was fortunate to be involved in a lot of key matters at the right time. And it was, again, because of my training ground being a litigation attorney.
Amazing. Just off for a second, they say that in Spotify every day about 120, 130,000 new song gets uploaded to Spotify. I wonder, is half or most coming from India? Because I know India, when it comes to music, everybody has that art side, creative side in them. And music is loved in India and everywhere in different regions. There's so many different languages and so many different sounds and ways of producing and creating. So the creativity level in India, it's pretty high. A lot of people have that creative art in them, whether in the movies or music. But music is pretty a big thing in India. So I wonder, there's another count. There's another 100,000 songs also get produced daily in India.
And I wouldn't put it past us. I mean, we're after all over a billion people, and you're absolutely right. I think
Yes.
music is in our DNA. It's sort of omnipresent, right? We've got every celebration has some form of music attached to
Yes.
it. Whether it's our weddings, it's the moment someone
Amazing.
is born, it's different festivals. So I think we're fortunate that we've sort of grown up with it so intrinsically as a part of our DNA and culture.
Priyanka, are you licensed also in New York? I mean, in the States or in New
No,
York? Because I know you go back and forth between India and New York. So, have you thought about it? Possibly opening another a branch here?
I think I've been very fortunate to work with incredible partners outside of India, but I think a lot of what makes I'm very conscious. I think a lot of what makes my time valuable to clients is the fact that I am an India expert, right? And I don't intend
Yes.
changing that. And I think even when I'm working with clients who are outside of India, the whole point is to give them access to local advice, to for them to be able to turn to someone who they know is a trusted advisor, is aware of practices in markets outside of the US. So I think for that reason, fortunately, I haven't felt the need to get myself licensed.
I mean, every major company or somebody wants to make some presence in America. They want to have, as they say, boots on the ground in India. Everybody wants to have boots on the ground there because they know how big and how strong the market is.
And I think in the last few years, we've pretty much acted for every single significant entity that I can think of that has set up shop in India.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk about Kimani and Associates. This is your last name. It's your own company. It's your own. Is it more of an advisory firm or both advisory, consulting, and also law firm?
I think it's largely advisory and a law firm.
Uh,
And I think just given the nature of the entertainment business,
yeah,
uh, I think we take more of a business affairs approach to a lot of our representation with clients.
yeah,
So I started it in 2014. So we've just turned 10 years old in April this year. And I think early days when we decided to set up the firm, I think we were it was almost unheard of for talent to have representation in India, right? And it's surprising because we're one of the most active, vibrant entertainment industries in the world.
amazing.
Even then it was either unheard of or almost offensive for talent to have representation, right? If you went to
Really?
US,
Why?
yeah, I think till date, actually, for a lot of the business, people get easily offended when you have an attorney acting for you, representing you, advising you. I think it maybe part of it is cultural. There's a certain amount of deference to the studio execs, to the heads. A lot of the business is family owned, family controlled. So I feel a lot of it has cultural nuances to it. So I think when we started it almost 10 years ago, and when the first client that we had was someone as iconic as Lata Mangeshkar, I feel that automatically got a lot of other talent to sit up and take notice. I feel there was a certain sigh of relief where they felt that, okay, good, I can just do what I'm supposed to do, which is, enjoy making art, and let somebody else come in and do the talking on my behalf. So on the one side, I think there was a lot of relief, but on the other side, I feel we also had to do the heavy lifting of getting different stakeholders warmed up to the idea, having talent being represented on conversations, right? And this is not artists, managers, and agents going in. This is actually attorneys going in and negotiating and advising and guiding. So I feel we were, in a sense, I still think we were fortunate that we started that culture of having talent being represented on transactions. So that's, I think that was a big part of our early days success and growth that we saw.
Um,
Oh, good. Oh, good. I think anyone who knows me knows that I've generally been a big advocate of women in leadership positions in the workforce. I think a lot of the team at the law firm as well is women. It's not by design. It is completely accidental, but here we are, and I'm very, very happy and proud about it. But I think coming back to Women of Music India, I think for a long time um, I've been the only woman in a lot of rooms. And I do recognize the fact there's many of us in the workforce, but it always makes me sit up and wonder that how is it that there's still so few of us at the top, right? And I think for me, the idea behind creating the foundation was really to create a space where everyone felt that there was enough access to opportunity. They could be educated, and I'm so grateful with how beautifully the Indian music industry has come out and supported it. You've got, all of the majors who've got presence in India, advocating for it, endorsing it, championing us. A lot of the workforce in the Indian music business has signed up to be a part of the foundation, and I think there's a lot of active on ground efforts in terms of creating opportunities, networking. Just actually before we started recording our session today, we announced three fully paid scholarships to a music school in India under the
wow,
foundation. uh,
amazing.
it's, yeah,
Congratulations. Amazing.
thank you. And I think
Yes.
it's about that, right? I know that there's enough and more access to information out there, and there's enough and more, talks on leadership and motivation that one can turn to. But for me, I felt that the focus was to try and actually create a lot of opportunities, real opportunities that put women in the spaces that we want them to be seen at.
Very noble. You're giving back to the community. Very, very noble, I would say. I mean, yes. Priyanka, let's talk a bit about the music scene, the difference, and the film scene. I'm very intrigued because I'm involved in both businesses, and they go hand in hand. Obviously, you cannot have a movie without music, and you cannot have music without a video, which still is still visual. So let's talk about that. For our viewers and listeners and myself, I've always been intrigued, always fascinated about the entertainment scene in India and
Which
how big it is.
absolutely. I think when anyone thinks of India, the first thing that pops to your mind is Bollywood, right?
Yes.
And I feel it's impossible to escape the movies when you're in India. We've all grown up watching so much beautiful cinema. And even for us, music, I say this all the time, we grew up watching music, not listening to it, right? The listening comes in later. So I feel even I love how music has played such an interesting part of movies. And I think there's such a synonym, such a collaborative synergistic relationship between the two, right? Even today you'll see a lot of movies where either they've got, it becomes popular for its soundtrack, even sometimes the movie may not do well, or I'll see a lot of non-film independent music being synchronized or placed in a movie. Very often till date I'll see that the filmmaker or the lead actor actress in a film has a say in what the music should be, or what do they want to be picturized dancing to, or what the music in their film should be like. And I think that's quite unique when it comes to the Indian market. Even if you look at our playlists, I think we're one of the few territories in the world where you'll search playlists based on the name of the actor, right? Even
Wow.
though most of our actors are actually lip syncing to the songs in these movies, they're not the artists. So I feel we're very unique when it comes to that, and films and music have always gone hand in hand in India. That being said, I'm very, very equally pleased that in the last few years, we've seen a vibrant, independent, non-film music industry grow and thrive, and I think it's only becoming bigger and bigger. There's such a conversation at the moment about the Indian diaspora and the talent that's coming out of the Indian diaspora. I don't think ever before in my career I would have dreamt of an artist of Indian origin being signed to a Republic record, or some of the recent success that we've seen with Punjabi artists doing sold out North American
Yes.
tours. So I feel
Correct.
there's clearly a moment, and it's being so beautifully received all over the world.
Yes. Is when it comes to sales in entertainment, whether it's DVDs for movies or CDs for music, is the physical sales still considered a big part of the revenue that are generated by artists, actors, and studios and record labels?
Almost none. I think, with the
None.
exception, none. I think we're purely, for the most part, digital. Vinyl, I think, in bits and pieces, does have some sort of nostalgia value attached to it, and
Yeah, more novelty.
lot of,
Yes.
correct, as we
Yeah.
can see in a lot of other markets. I feel it's the same
Yes.
in India, but I feel we've completely moved on from physical, with the exception of one. There's a record label called Saregama, and they launched a digital transistor looking like device called Carva, and that, by far, in my opinion, is really the only physical device or physical sale of music that I can think of. But other than that, I don't think I've seen a cassette, CD, DVD, or anything being sold for many, many years now.
Amazing. Can you tell us, I would say, one of your exciting matters that you worked on in Kimani and Associates? I'm sure you came across a lot of, interesting and exciting things. So let's take one, at least, if you can share with us.
Well, off the top of my head, I think it's hard to pick, but the one that I think in the recent past sticks out the most would be, I don't know if you recall this, but it was when Warner Chappell went to court on the eve of Spotify's launch in India.
Hmm.
And it was interesting because I think we were looking at an issue around statutory licensing, where Spotify tried to take the position that they could avail of a statutory license in India. And I think for a variety of reasons at the time, that matter was of global interest, right? We had a parallel litigation on the same issue between another Indian record label and a DSP that unfortunately actually announced that they are being shut down literally this morning, I think. So I feel there were lots of, it was challenging for a variety of reasons, the names that were involved, the timeline within which we were working, but more importantly, I think just the issue that we were dealing with, because I think it has far reaching effects, right, when you look at the licensing business as a whole. And if any player tries to take when someone's trying to take a position that, hey, wait a minute, this could qualify as a broadcast, I could avail of a statutory license, it naturally has the whole world sitting up and taking notice. So I think for all of those reasons, it's one of the matters that personally to me was extremely challenging. And I think linked to that, the one thing that people fail to have enough regard for, especially when it comes to a market like India, and I'm not saying this particularly of any DSP or service for that matter, but I think it's a repeat that I see over and over again with newer tech companies, especially in a market like India that's trying to innovate, where the land of engineers and coders. I think consistently everyone underestimates the value of licensing music. I've seen
Yes.
everyone try to push back, find all sorts of arguments, find innovative ways of, trying to circumvent it, or just plain vanilla wanting to enter a market like India, thinking, oh, it's going to be cheap, until you realize that it's anything but cheap. So I feel that's the one big piece of learning that clients have had over and over again when trying to do business with a market like India. And that's not to say that you're spending money for all the wrong reasons. It's just a territory that's its own beast. It has its own ecosystem. It's
Yes.
not an emerging market, as a lot of people like to think about it. It is the Indian film and entertainment industry has been around for decades, right?
Correct.
Largest producer of movies in the world. It's YouTube's biggest market. It's Instagram's biggest market. So why would we assume that a market
YouTube biggest market. Yes, 100%.
it is?
Absolutely. Yes.
We don't
Yes.
have
Big time.
TikTok here, which automatically makes Instagram and Reels massive, where they're number one
Yes.
market in the world. So it always amazes me when people think that it's going to be inexpensive to do business in India.
How do you figure out how to break into new markets and make deals for your artists, Priyanka, or for your clients?
I think it's been a very, very conscious entrepreneurial decision. And I think this is more to do with me as a person than as a lawyer. I think as I've always been entrepreneurial in the way I've set up the firm, in the way I've approached the practice, always thought that, wait a minute, how more can we lend value to our clients? And again, that's not to say that you're trying to eliminate others who might play a role in that, in the artist life cycle or ecosystem. For us, the approach has always been that, how do you really enhance the value of someone's career? And I think it's only for that reason that we've always gone above and beyond and said, okay, how can we help? Who do you need to connect with? What's next for you? That equipped with the fact that, look, we're also living in a day and age where there's technology all around us. There's so much access to data. There's so much visibility. You realize that, for an Indian artist, the Indian diaspora is one of the strongest, most influential, largest diasporas in the world. I'd be stupid to not see that opportunity and not tap into it. You're not, the fact that today artists of Indian origin are able to do sold out North American tours, you're getting signed to US based record labels. I think that's enough of a testament to the fact that there is clearly monetization in those markets. There's an opportunity for them, there's an audience, there's a consumer base that's looking forward to that music. So I feel I personally have always had a forward thinking approach. We want to go above and beyond. And if your artist is successful, it just means overall the team is successful. So that's why I think we love pushing the boundaries of what we do.
Great. And that's what it's all about, pushing the boundaries. Priyanka, I was going to ask you first how you manage your role being a board member on Song Trader and Beat Tap. But before that, how did it all became, what interested you to join it? I'm sure you were approached, obviously. It's not like you need more things on your table. You're pretty much really busy between running your own firm of consulting and a law firm, I would say international, based in India, but you do a lot of international deals, I'm sure. So what would made you say, you know what, this is great. I do want more on my plate. I love what, Song Trader stands for and they're doing on BTAP. Both a great company, totally different.
You're absolutely right. I think the reason that it was attractive is because they're both so different. They're doing incredible.
Yes. Yes.
Was I think I've pretty much been a part of their journey from day one. Was I'm trying to think, how did the conversation even happen? Because I remember working with them pre-pandemic. They reached out to me again. We're looking at the Indian market, and through a bunch of connections, this landed with me. I spent a few months really trying to understand the product, the technology, which was actually very different at the time. Eventually, like with any good startup that knows when to pivot, when to improvise, when to innovate, I think we've landed at where we are today. But the reason it was interesting is because I think, again, it's the entrepreneur in me that recognizes that, wait a minute, there is an opportunity here. It takes patience. I don't think everything is about what is the short term outcome of this, right? I feel it needs a certain amount of confidence in yourself, as well as in what you're seeing in another product, in another entrepreneur, to recognize that, look, you need the patience to see this through. How can I add value? A, can I really add value? B, how can I add value? And do I have the patience to see this through? So I feel, for a variety of reasons, Beat Up was interesting, because I think we all of us saw it coming, that streaming fraud and technology as it stands today is going to be a subject that we can't look away from. It is a
Yes.
serious problem in the business. I think with
Hmm.
AI, it's only amplified many, many times more.
Hmm.
And for all those reasons, I felt that BeatDep was very, very interesting as a company to support. I love Andrew Morgan Poria, their stories, their vision. Songtrade is a completely different beast, right? It's far more evolved. I think I was working with another local startup in India called Fair Play. I also sit on the board of Fair Play in India, which was trying to solve the problem of music licensing and rights management locally within the territory. And eventually, that somehow inevitably ended up into a song trader conversation. And then Paul and I got talking, and I thought it was so fascinating what he was trying to do. I love his strategy. There have been so many interesting acquisitions in the recent past. And interestingly, there isn't a there wasn't, at least at the time, an India conversation. But I think, Paul was gracious enough to feel that I knew enough and more about music rights and that the company could benefit from my experience and knowledge of the subject. So that's how the Song Trader board position came about. And I'm very, very grateful for it.
And how do you balance between your busy firm, and sitting on the board? Like, what? How do you make the time? Because you have to travel back and forth also, and that's a long flight from how many hours from Bombay
It's easily
to New York,
16 to 18 hours.
and that's a straight flight.
I can't do straight flights anymore. I'm not as young as I look. So no straight. I cannot do a direct flight.
So
But
where do you stop, in Europe or in Germany
usually
or?
Europe or the UK. So you kind of break it up half and half. At least that's my hack, and it seems to work for me. But
Yes.
no, I think I end up dividing my time living between New York and Mumbai, so that's helpful. But I think I'm very, very fortunate. We've built an extremely credible leadership tier at the firm that pretty much kind of runs it day to day. They're across different practice areas and come with diverse expertise as lawyers. So I think the idea is to train, empower, and delegate and let people do what they do best. And like you said in the beginning of the conversation, I know how to delegate, when to delegate.
Yes.
That's not to say I don't have my moments as a micromanager. I do. I think I'm a stickler for perfection and quality. But I feel everyone who's been a part of the team is largely homegrown. So they've spent enough time dealing with my quirks and are quite well acquainted now with what the work product needs to be like. So I think I'm blessed to have a good set of leaders and a team that supports me, that gives me the ability to do everything else that I'm able to do. And outside of that, I think I pretty much lead a simple, uncomplicated life where I work out, I go to the office, and I'm home. I
Yes.
stay away from a lot of I
You
don't think I
said
socialize.
simple and uncomplicated life. She lives between Bombay and New York, back and forth. Very simple. Okay, we got that.
The both worlds.
We got that. Priyanka, your intellectual property expertise or experience, how would you say it shaped your life or your business life, obviously? The way you advise your clients.
Honestly, to me, it's given me my entire identity, right? My
Wow.
career, my identity. So I feel
Hmm.
it has been at the center of what I do, especially given the music and entertainment ecosystem that we're in. We're seeing so much consolidation, so much M&A. You have
Hmm.
funds that have come in. You've got Wall Street guys sitting up and looking at the business and so intrinsically involved. But if you look at the core of it, till you don't have a clear understanding of IP, of copyright, of how music rights work, royalties, none of these products can be structured. You've got fanciful things being announced every other day. You've got how do you commoditize music rights, how do you create an asset class out of it, how are we doing bonds, can it be a security, so on and so forth. But at the heart of it lies a clear, deep understanding of copyright. And you and I know that that's never easy.
No.
Publishing is an ever evolving landscape. Music rights are
Separate
complex,
world. Yes. Yes.
and it's not one size fits all. It varies jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Every territory has its own nuances when it comes to intellectual property. What's accepted in a certain territory as a threshold for, let's say, fair use can be so different compared to a territory like
Oh,
India.
yes. Yes.
Legislation varies, our statutes vary, our courts could look at things differently. So I really feel it's impossible to be in the entertainment business, whether you're on the entrepreneurial side, on the legal side, commercial side, investment banking, any aspect of it. It's impossible to do it till you don't understand copyright in and out. So I feel,
Do
for
you
me,
feel a lot of the independent artists lack that knowledge and that at least general knowledge of it?
You know what? I feel a lot of them lack the knowledge, especially in a market like India. A lot of managers lack it, a lot of agents lack it. And I think that's okay because that's why you have experts. You have advise people who can advise you, right? It's like saying, I'm not an expert musician and I don't have to be. There's a reason that I turn to somebody when I need that. But equally, I feel if they I would love for at least some of the people who are in management to have a basic understanding, broad strokes of, hey, this is how it really works. But I don't think anyone needs to be an expert, and it's better to instead turn to someone who knows what they're doing than to try and DIY it.
Sorry. Priyanka, you're a great inspiration for a lot of people. From India, from everywhere, whoever watches you, follows you. I came across you on LinkedIn, and absolutely, you're a great inspiration. What advice you would have for people who obviously look up to you, want to follow your footsteps, and they say, you know what, Priyanka did it. I want to follow her path. She carved her own path, made her own mark in the entertainment industry, music and film. And I want to do the same. What advice you would have for them?
That you gotta roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty. I think people underestimate that, especially in today's day and age, because I feel there's so much emphasis on the reward that people forget that it's actually a lot of hard work behind the scenes. You got to know your subject, right? I think there's something called TLDR, too long didn't read. That seems to be the motto for a lot of the younger folks that I deal with. Uh,
Hmm.
Sometimes I'll ask people, what's the source of your information, and they're like, oh, I read on a blog, I heard it somewhere. And that's great. I'm not saying don't read and don't sort of gather information, but there's a difference between information and knowledge. And I feel the latter is really what you need to sustain a longer career. So really just get your hands dirty, put in the hard work. Don't chat GPT it, please.
Don't chat GPT. You heard it first on Soundbreaker right here with Kimani. So, what's in the future? What's big? Any big plans? Anything happening with Kimani and Associate? Can I say possibly offices popping everywhere in Europe, in the States?
Yes, from your lips to God's ears. That's definitely on the cards. So hopefully everyone will hear about it soon. But outside of that, I think it's just to sort of slowly, steadily do justice to all of the different roles that I'm playing right now, to actually minimize things and just do justice to everything that's on my plate at the moment.
Amazing. Well, firstly, thank you for joining us today. And I know it's getting late in India and we're here in the States. So good morning to us and good night to you. And this concludes today's episode of Soundbreaker. Please make sure to follow us on socials and stay tuned. And for our next episode, just be creative, think out of the box, and just believe in yourself, as Priyanka said. Thank you. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to share the Soundbreaker podcast. And if you are joining us on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Until next time.